Hello, everybody. Welcome to Badger Beer Hour for January 2023. That's right. It's the first episode of the new year. We've got all kinds of stuff for you this month. News, of course, and an interview with Sam Green from Untitled Art. That's right. We also have some beer events going on in Wisconsin. And Chris will follow up with a special beer spotlight that is near and dear to his heart. Let's get it kicked off with some news. Hey, Chris.
Good evening, Landon. Good evening, everybody.
How's it going?
I'm glad we didn't tell everybody that we were starting at 8 because we didn't really tell anybody when we were starting. So, starting at 8:10, that's right on Drowse time. That's great.
We usually start at 8-ish.
8-ish, that's right.
8-ish, that's right.
This is the ish.
Well, Chris, we've been starting news, or we've had a lot of bad news lately, and of course, why would we start off 2023 any different? We've got some real bummer news to open up the news for 2023.
Yeah. We've got a closing to report. That's West Alien Brewing in West Allis, Wisconsin, which is just outside Milwaukee, for those not to know. West Alien closed last week after five plus years, I guess, in business. This was a really small brewery. It's kind of I would say it's like the epitome of the type of brewery that's driven a lot of the industry's growth in recent years. Small neighborhood tap room. This one in particular was known for its candy corn cream ale, cotton candy kettle sour, peanut butter porter, and also, not to detract from all that, its support of the local veteran community. Co-owner Eric Dorfner is a Marines veteran. And he and his wife, Kim, opened up a second location in Marinette in November. So this one flew under the radar of Badger Beer Hour and myself. So I'm relieved to see that this is not the end of the road for the Dorfners, that they're assuming that this was kind of a planned sequencing and that they'll be moving north. There's kind of a lot going on here with this closure. I haven't seen any interviews with the Dorfners, but they were the first brewery in West Allis when they opened in 2017, and that changed really quickly. Not just Greater Milwaukee, but specifically even in West Allis, there was another very small brewery called Lehman Brewing that opened. I think that was in 2020. And then both Perspective Brewing, which is quite nice, and Oak Brewing, which we talked about quite a bit on the show here, opened, and they're obviously a really big brewery, but still also competing in that kind of neighborhood gathering place space. So that I think that made it a tough go, and we're very positive here on Badger Beer Hour, but the beer at West Alien was not really known for being great. I had a friend, I guess we could call him, who got together with a bunch of other of his friends and ranked all the breweries in the Milwaukee area by whatever they felt like.
Sure.
1 to 40, and they put West Alien dead last. So,
ouch.
These are the Dorfners are super nice people who had, I will say, they had an adorable brewery dog named Alice, Allis, who I stole my heart. I met her when her family showed me around the brewery when I stopped by one night. I was at the Drunk Uncle, which is not that far, and Neil was like, "Hey, have you guys been to the new brewery yet?" And it was just like, I think less than a year after it opened. He's like, "All right, we're going." We a few beers in, we went down there, and it was nice. It's a good neighborhood spot, and you don't need exceptional beer to have that cachet within a neighborhood. So
right.
They'll be missed, and we certainly wish them the best of luck up in Marinette.
Yeah. All right. I actually saw this next story and I didn't say anything about it because it involves Minnesota, but it does have Wisconsin ties. So there's some intrigue with one of my favorite breweries up here. And like I said, it ties them to a Twin Cities brewery.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. You have to
Yeah.
bear with me because we don't really know a lot here. They haven't. It was kind of a let me tell the story. Okay, there's more questions than answers potentially. But the bottom line is the city of Minneapolis earlier this month granted Oliphant Brewing of Somerset a liquor license to operate at 2934 Lyndale Avenue South, which is a nice spot in a former theater, kind of on the edge of the Uptown and Linwood neighborhoods in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Thing is, there's already a brewery there.
Sure is.
Lynn Lake Brewery opened in 2014, but this is never a good sign for continuing operations. It announced recently that its popular Beer It Forward board, where you can buy like your buddy or like Lizzo or a teacher, whoever, a beer would be ending by January 31st. So, Lizzo is literally on their board right now. So she's got until, she's got a couple weeks yet to claim her beer.
Yeah.
Probably just a coincidence, but maybe not for nothing. Lynn Lake announced earlier this fall, just before the debacle against the Vikings to open the season, that it was becoming a Packers bar.
Yeah.
And there's some posts that indicate that like half the people who work here are from Wisconsin. So I don't know. I don't know.
The only thing that I could say is the Herkimer.
That sounds like somebody who knows something that I don't.
Yeah, the Herkimer brewery / brew pub that was next door to Lynn Lake used to be a Packer bar.
Mm-hmm.
They closed, I believe this last summer or relatively recent.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them taking, Lynn Lake, if they, half the employees are from Wisconsin, I could see them taking over that. The only other thing I can say about Oliphant is that they're in a relatively small spot and they distribute a lot of beer to the Twin Cities. So if you were going to get a liquor license so that you could distribute your beer easier in the Twin Cities and then have a second outpost.
Yeah.
They're doing quite well. So I don't know.
All right. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Good. In no matter what happens, the questions that I would have about this are they going to be brewing there? How big is that space? Are they going to be just kind of an occupant? Is Lynn Lake going to be still there, not making beer maybe, but not having the front? Will it be some kind of joint tap room thing? It looks like a pretty big space. They've got a full restaurant.
It's a really nice space, as a matter of fact, and they have a really awesome rooftop.
Yeah,
that overlooks downtown Minneapolis. So
obviously you've been there. You should.
I have. Yeah.
All right. In any case, good luck to Oliphant on its new liquor license in Minneapolis. And I mean, like, dude, that's kind of it.
Really? Another slow month out of you? You got nothing?
We can. Okay. Here's the thing. I guess we could talk about the big like national beer story going around right now if we want to.
Sure.
It's kind of hot. It's kind of hot right now. All right. So, there's this beer you might have heard of called Fat Tire.
I heard of it a time or two, sure.
Yeah. New Belgium's what had been the flagship for New Belgium out in Colorado, and now with a brewery in are they in Virginia or North Carolina? I think North Carolina. They're bi-coastal, by non-coastal, by edges, whatever. They have two breweries. Sure. They are introducing a new packaging with a clean kind of white and blue design, major shift from what they had been doing. And they've mixed up the kind of the look of this brand and kind of their overall brand a couple times in the past few years. But this is a totally new, I mean, you're not going to confuse this for the old thing. And there's also kind of this focus that leans into New Belgium's sustainability efforts, which are pretty substantial. But the big deal here is that it's a new recipe, and this is one of the classic. I mean, this was one of the OG amber ales from early in the
Right.
early in craft beer
Right.
for all, not just for all of us, but especially out west. I mean, this is a brand that's like 32 years old. So they're describing the new Fat Tire as a crisper, brighter, and even better Fat Tire. And I've only seen a few early reviews of this beer, which is kind of frustrating and seems weird that they wouldn't
Hmm.
be hitting up every beer writer and influencer and me that they know and saying, "Hey, you should just try this new beer," as it's being announced. But okay. Um, one of the early reviews that I did see though was that suggested that it was more lager like, which suggests to me that maybe they're giving the beer to the wrong people because it's still an ale, and I don't know. But lager like, I guess that would mean clean. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
this is essentially a Belgian, kind of Belgian style amber ale.
Right.
Not that different from the roots of Louis Demise. Is also has some Belgian roots there. Not a super Belgian, like, we think of Belgian yeast as being like really, you know lots of phenols and fruitiness and stuff. But this is obviously a lot more subdued. But there is that kind of both in the malt and I think and in the yeast. Um, so describing it as lager like is pretty interesting. Anyway, this is a big deal for New Belgium. I mean, obviously, messing around with a flagship beer that's been around for 30 plus years is not child's play. But obviously they thought they had to do something. Kate Bernat of Good Beer Hunting reported last week. She kind of broke the story last week that, and in her reportings, noted that Fat Tire has lost more than half of its volume since the high water mark of 2016, which is like not really that long
It's
ago for
not
an
that
amber
long ago.
ale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, it had accounted for more than half of New Belgium's production, a true flagship. Um, and what's interesting is that this brewery has been doing fine during this time. Like its retail volume for all of its beers is up 58% in that period. So, I mean, that's a really good sign that you can lose this, this much of this beer and still be, doing really successful, still being really successful with growth. And I think anybody who's seen New Belgium, displays and stuff over the past few years knows what's happening there, and that's the success of the Voodoo Ranger line of IPAs. Those have really taken over, and I think Voodoo Ranger is now like one of the top 5 brands in maybe all of beer, or certainly craft beer.
Wow.
So, and that's just like the core one, and they've got all these variants and stuff. So,
Right.
hey, I mean, people love IPAs, and they're going that way, so makes
Sure.
sense. One other thing that should be noted with all this is during that time period between 2016 and now, there's a new international owner that took over the Japanese conglomerate Kirin. I
Right.
think it's Japanese. I put that down. I'm not sure if that's correct, but it's Kirin, is the name of the company, and they purchased New Belgium in 2019 from the employee owners.
Right.
And as we should probably note, in Wisconsin, a lot of people think of employee ownership as a kind of inoculation against a corporate takeover, but it doesn't work if the employees want to sell as well. And I'm just saying
Correct.
that because there's a major brewery in Wisconsin that is substantially employee owned, and that is New Glarus. And the Carries are, I don't know, they don't have anything. They don't have anything left to prove. That's for sure.
Right.
Just saying. That's
Yep.
I get no one that information. Just saying.
Very good.
I don't know. Do you guys have any takes on this? I mean, I don't know when the last time. Actually, I do know when the last time I drank Fat Tire was. I'm sure it was at my in-laws' house.
Mine was a long, long time ago. Um, it's one of those beers when you see it, you just go, well, what else do you got? And usually you can find something else that you'll like better. Because
Yeah,
chances are when you're at a towny bar, when it's just a bunch of light beers, the other option is probably not going to be Fat Tire. So
yeah. I respect the beer as it was, at least.
Yeah,
I thought it was a
sure.
good amber ale, but I just don't drink a lot of amber ales, and I think that's what's happening here. I mean, that was
Yeah,
in
I, I
that
think I think early on in the craft scene, you probably saw a lot of browns, a lot of ambers, those kinds of things. You didn't really see most of what's popular now.
right.
So yeah, well, try to save it. Do what you can.
That's right. I
That's
mean,
right.
I a lot of people, the discourse on Twitter has been a thing about this. It was actually at least for me, and
Yeah.
Twitter knows what I'm into and stuff. But it was like Fat Tire was trending yesterday,
Wow.
so that's pretty unusual. For a beer thing to be, making the big board. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think that anybody. I think the people who are talking about it on Twitter are probably people who have not bought Fat Tire in a long time. For the most part.
I would imagine. Yeah.
What else?
What ifs?
All right.
All
That
right.
is the January 2023 news. Greg, play us off. Hi there. Welcome back. I'm really pleased to introduce today somebody who's going to put a face on a brewery that has, I think, intentionally really not had a face for its 6 years of existence, and that is Untitled Art, which is based in Wanakee, brewed at Octopi Brewing, and I'm pleased to welcome the guy who has written every recipe. We need to get clarification on this, but he's been the head brewer at Untitled Art since the start, and he has been the guy who has been bringing you all those amazing, crazy hype beers for 6 years. So, Sam, welcome to Badger Beer Hour.
What an introductory! Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, cool. Nothing I'd rather do with where are we at? Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, Why Beer Wednesday, yeah. All right, so okay, tell us about your path to brewing and your path to Untitled Art. Let's start with the start.
Yeah, so I grew up kind of in Wisconsin, as all people do in Wisconsin, and fall in love with beer. And then when I was in college, there was kind of like this awakening or enlightenment that beer can be more than just Miller Lite, Coors Light, Milwaukee's Best, Ice House. I think we were drinking some of.
College will do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't have any money, but it kind of was just like there's a whole nother world out here that we're not tapping into. Similar to like cheese, other people's opinions of cheese, and then how in depth Wisconsin can tell you about a 12-year aged God knows what. So I was doing that. I think I was 18 at the time, and I started doing some home brewing. Wasn't very good at it at all. And then started at a brewery in Wisconsin, because you can brew when you're not 21. There's a little bit of a loophole. I don't know if it still exists. And I don't know if I'd recommend it. It's not like money was very good then. But then, I took a job out in Colorado for a brewery called Boulder Beer. And I worked my way up from the lowest of the low to kind of more or less running the brew house and in control of most of the brewers. Never got official status there, but that's what I did. And then one day I saw Octopi was hiring and decided to move back to Wisconsin.
And this is let's see. Well, how long were you at Boulder?
I was at Boulder Beer I was there for 6 years total, but I took a break in the half and I left, and then they said, we want you back. So,
okay. So, and then Untitled Art started in late 2016. Is that?
Our first batch of Juicy was in December 2016. So,
okay. And you went directly into the head brewer role. Is that? I mean, obviously,
yeah.
Untitled Art has some pretty talented brewing.
For sure.
Like with Isaac Shawaki, who's who's the Octopi principal owner, and then Levi Funk, who obviously with Funk Factory,
Yeah.
those are the two kind of owners. So I mean, obviously some beer talent around you, but can you tell us about like stepping into that role at Untitled Art and kind of what it looked like from the ground floor of this
Yeah.
now national brand?
Yeah. So when I originally accepted the job for Octopi, I think it was for like lead brewer or something. And then it was quickly apparent that like my talents were in recipe development and formulation. And so Isaac and Levi kind of approached me. They pulled me aside and they're like, hey, like, what would you say if we started a brewery and money was no option and you could make anything you wanted? It just has to be really, really good. And I was like, sounds like I'm dreaming. And they said, no, this is actually something we want to pursue. We think that at this time, Wisconsin was a little bit behind on the times. And you could see places in New England and California, Colorado, Florida, really bubbling up and making all these cool, exciting beers. And Wisconsin just wasn't. And they were like, I think there's a real chance to do something here and reflect well on Wisconsin. And so that's what they approached me with. And I said, let's go for it. And that was Juicy Batch 1. And now we're on God knows what, 250, I think now. So it's been a long ride.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about like how that, I mean, did your background at Boulder kind of plug into that next phase with Untitled Art and the obviously there's kind of a set of beers and kind of flavor profiles and stuff that they were going after there. What's the kind of describe the kind of the continuity there and or not?
So my kind of role at Boulder Beer was, and it was kind of funny too, very similar. Like originally just a shift brewer, and we were making Mojo and Hazen Infused all the time. And then I would stay and come in on weekends and pilot brew and just make small batch goof around stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got the most joy. I think that's where a lot of brewers get the most joy. And the beers were selling pretty well. And then we made a beer called Shake, which was, chocolate stout that was super chocolate forward. And at the time they were kind of like, holy cow, this is very different. I don't even know how to sell this. And they put it up on the market and it was really well received. And so that kind of trickled into padding my resume, I guess, for Untitled Art.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, that beer was, certainly a kind of a preview of what Untitled Art became as far as like the deployment of chocolate, not just as like, I mean, there had been chocolate stouts, but those were like using like what they call chocolate malts, which was just, I mean, certainly there were some brewers that were using nibs and but I think going for that kind of like actually sweet, I mean, still balanced, but sweet profile, like you get from like a chocolate bar, or I mean, obviously the Shake is a reference to, I believe it's a reference to like a milkshake, right?
That's correct. Yeah. It's funny because I look back and think like, the guy who invented the golden doodle, he's kind of like, what the hell have I done? Like, this is a monstrosity. And I think back, it's like, ooh, was that like on the forefront of the bastardization of beer as we know it? But in the end, it's all about the liquid and the consumer, and people wanted something like that. So,
okay, well, it's interesting that you use the term bastardization of beer, because I mean, Untitled Art has probably, I mean, I would say carried the torch for, culinary stuff in beer and pastries and the super fruited sours. I mean, and again, like as you mentioned, like Wisconsin was kind of behind the times, I think, or Wisconsin brewers were slower to embrace, I guess those styles would be a way to put it. And so it's not like these things did not exist before Untitled Art, but I mean, as far as like, having a portfolio that is exclusively that stuff, I mean, it sounds like there's maybe a little dissonance with you, the way that you feel about that, or can you just talk about like that body of work and how you relate to it as a brewer and a drinker?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not without my holistic ancient approaches. I find beauty in a very well crafted Pilsner. But for me, it's kind of, I'm very like, what's new, what's exciting, how do we test this, push the limits? And Untitled Art and my bosses embrace that, and they're kind of like, yeah, go ham. And when we first started out, it was more of a replication, a kind of following in people's waves. Like it was a copy of a New England style IPA. It was a copy of a Florida style Berliner Weiss or something, or heavy stout. But then we quickly kind of caught up to, okay, now we're not copying anymore. Now we're with them pace for pace. And now we're, personally, I feel like we're kind of stepping up ahead now and taking on a leadership role in where beverages are and where beverages are going in terms of exploration, in terms of real raw scientific capacity. That's where the Octopi part really takes in, because they have just beautiful equipment. I mean, the experience and technology there. I mean, there's 140 people on staff. Many of them have 5 to 10 years of beer experience. So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of brewing. And what's really cool is that they do all different kinds of styles. So they can take what they applied on an Oktoberfest to what we want to do on something oak aged oatmeal stout. And kind of, we get to piecemeal everything together and take the best of both worlds, I think. So
how does that one thing relate to the other thing? Because I think from a consumer perspective, like we see an Oktoberfest and it's very familiar and it's delicious, and it satisfies in a very specific way. And then like a like a marshmallow brownie stout or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Sorry, I should have checked some recent releases to be a little bit more specific. But I mean, how do those, and and they can both be really done really well, and I can enjoy them each, but they seem like they're in completely different universes. So what kind of crossover do you have there as far as expertise and kind of in the making that all that experience and that knowledge translates over?
Sure. So I guess I can give you kind of an example. There's these new yeasts that are coming out in Berkeley, a lot of thiolized yeast, a lot of preloaded fruit flavors, which we're kind of excited about experimenting with, and how can we use those to express more fruit characteristic. And so we're taking and talking with the Yeast Corporation and then the brewers as well, as what do we know about, making Hefeweizens or stuff like that? We're stressing the yeast out systematically due to temperature or low pitch rates or low oxygen or high oxygen. What is irritating the yeast do in a controlled environment? Where if we were just Untitled Art, or if we were just left to our own devices, it would be unscientific, I think. And this way it's more precise. They can say, here's the data. Look what happened when we fermented at 55 degrees. Look what happened when we fermented at 72 degrees. Or even more minute than that, 70 to 72. And so that's kind of cool. And it's a huge weapon in our arsenal. And the side goes both ways. So we push Octopi out of their comfort zone to try beers that they won't make. And Octopi can accommodate and then says to other clients like, hey, guess what? We now know how to make an overfruited Berliner Weiss kettle sour, where before they would not have. So it's symbiotic relationship, I think.
Right. Oh boy, there's so much to work with here. I have so many questions. Okay.
Sure.
Let me start kind of just peeling off of what you just said there. I mean, I think beer people, understand that Untitled Art is, has some shared DNA with Octopi. But I mean, you just described Octopi as they, and I like, can you just kind of describe how that working relationship is with your essentially like, brewing, you're a contract client, but also, I mean, I can't imagine that Isaac, calling shots on in both companies is not, I don't know. I'm not sure how that would work.
And it's funny too, because it's dependent on the day. It's depending on who's asking. It's depending on how they want the question answered or how I do. But my boss has pretty much always been the same. It's always been Isaac and Levi together. There's times when Isaac puts his foot on the gas pedal. me being the gas pedal, or when Levi puts his foot on the gas pedal on me. And there's an ebb and flow to the company too, where if we need more of something, this person will drive harder, or we need more of this. But yeah, we all work in the same building. Before, when we were starting, that's when you talk about this layers. Yeah, we could talk for forever. Before, when we started, contract brewing was pretty dirty word, and people were shunning that concept in gypsy brewing. And that's one of the things that Isaac wanted to erode or kind of rewrite the framework of that. And so they put a lot of emphasis on expensive equipment and knowledgeable people and actually delivering what the requests are. And it's just worked out really well, I think. And that has helped Untitled Art to push farther too.
Yeah.
And so it's been a wild ride. And like, I see Isaac every day. I see Levi every day. The employees pretty much cohabitate. But yeah, it's been a wild ride.
How many employees I understand you're not like but I imagine you're in a kind of an executive-ish position. But how many employees does Untitled Art have? You know?
Not very many. Since we have a lot of unique business structure. So we don't have a large sales force. We obviously don't own a brewery, so we don't have any equipment. So there's very few niche jobs, and people who work there need to wear multiple hats. I think it's fine to say, but there's around 10. There's not very many people that work there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I wanted to spin back over to the beer stuff. And sure. Because you mentioned having kind of leading the way in these styles. And I guess like we should probably define like what that means. Like to me, Untitled Art is hazy milkshake IPAs, kind of leading very contemporary hop styles, and then pastry stouts, lots of adjuncts, lots of vanilla, some barrel aging for sure, lots of kind of culinary ingredients and replicating sweet treats and stuff like that. And then there'd be the fruit and sour lines that you mentioned, like the Florida Vices, but also some milkshake stuff going on there, and
we make, and this would be interesting. We make a large seltzer line. Do you know anything about this?
Yes, okay. Of course, and of course the NA line. I mean, this time of year also. So let's jump over to that. Let's save that. But can you talk about although maybe the answer to that is that the answer to this question is that. But you kind of mentioned like leading and innovation, and I mean, I don't know. Like there has to be a terminal kind of velocity to the kind of combinations of all the different stuff that we're putting in beer, but I don't know, maybe not. Like, I mean, is that what you mean by innovation, or kind of what is it? Is it about advancing the quality and the execution of those things? But
in the previous years, yes, it was very beer explorative. But over the past couple of years, it's been this turn of the tide where Untitled Art no longer wants to identify itself as a brewery, and we're more and maybe this is a horrible fan base to say this to, but it is the truth. We're more trying to be a beverage company now.
Yeah.
And so we've looked into the Florida Seltzer line was, we were drinking or seeing that people were drinking these White Claws, these Trulies, which in our opinions were not worth their weight in money. We're like, God, why are people consuming these? Why don't people like use real fruit, real ingredients? And then a light bulb went off, and we're like, we're doing that. We're gonna make that, and we're gonna make them taste good. That was the inception of the Florida Seltzer. We've also pursued other avenues. We've pursued wine. We didn't really master that technique. We make a lot of CBD water, which has a cult following. We made some adaptogens. We just recently came out with a Delta 9 beverage.
Is that available in Wisconsin? It
is, yes.
Okay.
Wisconsin and Minnesota. And we're we're learning a lot. And I think that's what's kind of cool about working for Untitled Art is there's no rigidity and everything's very fluid. So we're kind of like a dog chasing cars, but it keeps it fun. And it's like, well, you know, let's pursue Delta 9 because there might be a real opportunity here. Or same with non-alcoholic. That was a big thing too, is like, I was like, God, these non-alcoholic beers just taste like shit. Like, why can't someone make a good one? And we're like, you know what? Forget this. We're going to make a good one. And so we just drove hard and hit the textbooks and studied and experimented and tried. And we're like, all right, let's make a good NA. So we're not bound by beer. That's how we got our roots. And that's always where our core is. But these new shiny objects are pretty interesting. I like to be challenged too. So, and whatever we learn there, we can come back and apply on later things too. Like, how do we get a mouth feel of a stout in a seltzer, or vice versa? How do we get a Christmas in a seltzer and carry it back to a beer? So,
oh, that's really interesting stuff. Wow. Okay. So, and I guess like you're at the forefront of all this. Like, there's not like a NA development kind of. I mean, okay. So how do you kind of channel that? You know, your experience has been in beer. How do you kind of channel that into like all these other things? And like, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. How do you do your job? I guess.
I don't know. You get pretty good at what you do, I guess.
Yeah.
And you apply principles, critical thinking, and just what will work. I think there's a lot of play over. You know, someone who's a very sophisticated baker could easily jump over into cooking a nice entree. I think there's principles that apply to both.
Yeah.
That's not to say it's not without challenge. And unfortunately, in some of the NA industry specifically, that was very frustrating because I feel like it's really dark on my eye. There was no one to talk to. There was no book, no nothing, no. You couldn't ask anybody anything because no one knew what the hell we were doing. An Italian Pilsner NA or a juicy NA. There's probably like 5 people on the planet, and even those people weren't going to give us the answers we were looking for. So we're just like, well, what's going on here? Why did the NA suck? How do we overcome this hurdle? Oh, okay, let's think about it this way, and then practice that and say, oh shit, that didn't work at all. Or be like, oh, we're getting close on something here. Uh-oh, I cannot hear you. I can't hear you. Oh, no.
Chris, can't hear you. What's up, Sam? How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Chris?
Nice hat.
Jump in, jump out, or thank you.
I didn't get it in earlier.
Yeah, I don't know where Chris's line of I don't know where Chris's line of where he was going.
Sure.
But
no. I'll answer your question. You got any questions for me?
Chris, drop out and come back.
Okay, there.
Yes, no, we got
That's
you.
great. I have these new earbuds, and when I touch, like, as I touch my head all the time, sometimes I nick and okay. Anyway,
is this
all right, where were we?
Is this Apple?
What's that?
I said, is this Apple?
No, this is just this is actually Sony.
Okay.
I'm too cheap.
Damn,
I'm too cheap
Android.
for that. Okay, all right. So when you mentioned that kind of in the selling point that money was no object, and that rings true for me because one of the reasons I don't drink a ton of Untitled Art beer or beverages, but beer specifically, is the price point. And there's a different model there, and I assume that really helps making like why do these seltzers suck? Well, because they're like $7 for a 6-pack, or but I mean, certainly you get what you pay for with this stuff. I mean, the quality and the flavor profile, the intensity, all that stuff ends up really following along. But I mean, I don't know. Can you kind of talk about a little bit about how it gets to that point and where, kind of where that comes from?
Yeah, I kind of have a unique position too in that I can see how much things are tabulating to start to cost us, and sometimes I'm let full. It used to be when we were first starting, it was pretty free range, and now it's like, all right, cool it with the vanilla beans here. Like let's get a little bit more intelligent about this. But yeah, we've always just put premium first, and we see that too. And in today's economy, and that we price ourselves pretty high, and I agree. Some of them are pretty expensive. You do get what you pay for. And so we try to make some alternatives to meet people halfway. And again, a 4-pack is a lot too. You take a giant leap when you buy, I don't exactly know how much a 4-pack of juice drops is. I'll say about $20. I remember I was just in Seattle not but a half a year ago. I went to a brewery and I remember it was $32 for a 4-pack. I was like, dude, like, just give me a can. He's like, no way. I was like, who the hell would give you 30? I was like, oh, we do that. Oh my God. And what Untitled Art has done and tried to do, and I believe successfully, is made a name for quality. So you're not going to come up with a goose egg on Untitled Art. We certainly have ones that really shine, and we have ones that don't shine as bright. But you more or less know what you're going to get, and you're not going to get a false representation of how much fruit's going to be in there, or some made up fluff where it's like, yeah, I guess this kind of tastes like brownies if you told me it was made with brownies. That's something that we've prided ourselves on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does, with whatever you want to call us, a recession or suppression, we have been seeing, like, unfortunately, some people can't get access to this. So how do we, meet them halfway, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, and part of that too is the model of like being, what is it? 25 states? Is that?
Yeah, I think it might be 25. I was going to say 23, but we'll go with 25.
Okay. So 20 some states, I mean, so very, very, very broad. And when you're in that many states, and do you know how many barrels Untitled Art made last year? I'm not sure if I know.
I do.
I mean, I know I do not know.
But
Can you tell us? You're not going to tell us. Okay.
No, right. I think we kind of like the position we're in. We're not too big. We're not too small. It's in as many markets as we can get it in. We certainly love the fact that people like hound us. Get it to here. Get it to see. I'll keep using Seattle. Like, please get it in Seattle. We kind of like that stuff. And then it's a new Glarus model. You can't get it everywhere, so it builds up a little bit of hype. But we don't want to block people out. That was the whole reason we started the brewery. Was like, these New England IPAs need to be made available. You can't just get them fresh from Boston. Like, this is bull crap. Like, so it's as available as it can be without us being too big, I think.
Okay. Gotcha. You mentioned, what's your favorite, what's the favorite beer that you've made?
I get asked that question a lot. And personally, I do like to jump around. I'm not a brand loyalist, so I like to make new. It keeps it very exciting for me. My days at Boulder Beer, I can't imagine working at a different brewery, making Sierra Nevada Pale Ale 4 times a day, every day, Monday through Friday for the past however many years. Mm-hmm. But like, stuff that's really near and dear to my heart, I bring up the cherry sour a la mode we did with Corporate Ladder. That was a step. And most of the beers that, when I get to ask this question, most of the beers are beers that moved us a step up. And that was definitely one. That was a kettle sour that we put a lot of cinnamon in, and no one that I had interacted with had worked with cinnamon and how to deal with that. And that stuff wreaks havoc on yeast. It messes yeast up. It turns it like this crazy snotty stuff. And yeah, it's really wild.
So what was the solution there? What was the big step forward?
Well, just in using raw spices to begin with, and calibrating that and controlling when to pull the flavor on it and how to halt seeping that kind of cinnamon flavor out. And then we also did a beer with Drecker, which I talk about frequently, a mango coconut sticky rice. And that was really cool to talk to Mark Bajorn. and Jordan's dad, I think. And because he was equally as amplified, we were both excited to do something. We didn't know what. And he was saying, so, what I've found is that these dessert beers really benefit from going kettle sour. You would never think that, but the sourness adds an extra kind of, not quite umami, but a mouthfeel to it. And we tried it out, and surprise, surprise, he was right.
Awesome.
And obviously the non-alcoholic stuff I'm personally really proud of. I'm really happy that landed. So.
That's great. That's great. One of the things you mentioned in both the one thread through both of those things is collaborations, and Untitled Art is, like more than half of the beers are probably collab, right?
Yeah, we started out.
All of them at the beginning. Well, almost all.
And that's kind of how we got our namesake too, is because the beer business is so, man, this beer's really building up now in my chest. The liquid drinking, not the talking about. So to clarify, that's how we got our foot in the door. I think we were working a lot with Microphone and all these other companies, because Levi's very good friends with a lot of these companies, and it was a good way to utilize kind of hanging out with the boys and learning and co-benefiting. And then, not that we don't do as many collabs now, but it hasn't been as frequent as we have. And simply, we're just kind of running out of breweries to pick, I guess. So
you've hit all the good ones, huh? What about like, how does that work? Like, take us inside the collaboration process, because I think people see that, they'll see the logo on the beer and not really know, like, does this just mean that they're brewed it there, or like,
sure,
you kind of email the recipe back and forth, or how does that work? I imagine a lot of them are different, but kind of maybe a typical one.
Yeah, and it's I'm glad you asked the question, because it's everything in between. So, and it's even been eye-opening to myself personally, that I've seen, like, we'll collaborate with someone and someone will say, like, yep, here's our logo. And we're like, whoa, we're trying to, like, find, so hopefully you're supposed to teach us something. You're supposed to make our IPAs taste a little bit fruitier because of a technique that we're not familiar with. And then hopefully we teach you how to ... I don't know, clean a tank or add cinnamon to a beer. And those are the most fun. So that's why I really like the Drecker part, because that was really a, like, I use a lot of metaphors, and similar to a band, like, I was playing an instrument and he was able to pick up the tune and play to challenge me. And we both kind of amplified each other. And then I'll remember that, because it was very refreshing too, because it was kind of like what do you want to make? I don't know, IPA. What do you want to make? This. And he's like, I want to make something good. I really want to focus. For the most part, though, it'll just be a random brewery. We do a lot of beer events, and let's say Beer and Cheese is coming up this weekend. I'll just plug that. And I'll go get a beer at a random booth, and then perhaps I'll have a conversation with somebody, and it might be just friends, like, oh, you like mountain biking? I like mountain biking. Or, oh, hey, what do you think about adding kumquat to blah, blah, blah? And then that typically will progress, and it'll turn email, turn phone, turn conversation, turn come on over, let's hang out, to let's brew a beer together. Typically is how it goes. For us, I can't speak for everybody's collab everywhere. And since I've seen the full spectrum, I know that it can be anywhere in between too.
Yeah. Is that usually happening at Octopi, or is that?
Yeah, the brunt, Levi's very good about this too. He will, most times when he goes out of state, it is to brew with another brewery. And it's kind of cool. And he'll go to other countries to do that too, as well. So like Korea, Russia. I don't know if he's done anything in the UK. I have to look back at the archive. But yeah, most of them are done at Octopi, because that's our facility. That's kind of where we brew. And that works out really well for the contract aspect too, is they can say, I'll keep picking on Drecker. Say, yeah, Drecker, why don't you come out to Octopi and we'll brew a beer together? Oh, by the way, this place contract brews in case you're at capacity. So it works out pretty well.
Right.
So.
Oh my God, Sam, so many things. Okay. Do you know how many beers you've made? How many beers
Untitled
Art has made?
You can ask me both. I know that Untitled Art is around 250 now, I think.
Okay. Does that include the seltzers and all the beverages? Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the single beverages, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Man,
Octopi, I think, has made 7 beers. So
okay.
Hop Rocket, Galaxy, S'more Stout, Belgian Candy Waffle, some other stuff I can't remember.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I had. I don't know. I feel like I had so many that were just like stacked up in the middle of all that stuff. But
No.
anything that you want to add about your work with what's okay. Oh, all right. 2-part question.
Tell me.
One is what's coming up for Untitled Art.
Whoa.
And second, this is actually 2 separate questions. So go ahead.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold that one.
Coming up, let's see. I can pop open the schedule right now and just
There you go.
Share all
go ahead, share your screen and just throw all that.
Yeah, no.
Little charts and graphs.
Personally, I think the Delta 9 is something we're pretty excited about. So, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but it's an avenue that most of the employees who work for Untitled Art don't participate in, this THC beverage. But there is kind of a cool like social aspect to it. And we are, since the non-alcoholic stuff we're really happy about, we're looking more into, well, what are some other not alcohol based beverages? And, we don't want to ostracize anybody. And I think Untitled Art does a good job of that. We do like a lot of vegan, or we accommodate for most health concerns. Every now we'll do some gluten-free stuff. And this Delta 9 thing is for people who can't abide and just drink alcohol, but they don't want to be ostracized at a party because they're not drinking. So this is like potentially, and it'd be cool to timestamp this and then look back 3 years and be like, yeah, that turned into nothing, or be like, oh, that guy was speaking some of the true. Is that this could not replace beer, but it could replace a portion of just a social aspect of liquid drinking THC in a community, I think. And I personally, it's been out for just a couple months now, and I've seen it too. I'll bring it with my friends, and we'll always start with the Delta 9, and then we'll have like 2 beers, and you feel pretty good afterwards.
Oh my God, beers after I mean, I'm not speaking out of school here, but
sure,
like, yeah, oh my God, everything tastes better.
Yeah, so you've read.
That second one is like, oh yeah,
and it's a different kind of body buzz, and I don't consume a lot of alcohol. It's been a long time since I've been drunk, but it does add a vibe to it, and plus it just saves your liver. In the morning you're just like, oh, I only drank 36 ounces of liquid, 24 of it was beer, but I felt like I drank 200 ounces of beer.
What is the Delta 9 dosage in one of those cans?
It's just 3 milligrams, so it's really small. Some people are making, and that's what we wanted to do too. We're not trying to get zooted or trying to get people messed up. Right. It's really low, and a non-THC consumer should feel the effects. We're finding out it's hitting everybody different, which is, I mean, it's uncharted territory to us too. We hired a personal scientist to kind of walk us through and talk us what is chemically going on and what our expectations can be. But that's that. And then, sorry, it went off on that's non-beer.
Yeah, no, that it's super interesting stuff. So,
with a very special barrel-aged release coming out with Angry Chair, which we typically do once a year. That'll be Midnight Toffee. So if anyone had the old Midnight Toffee, they should be hopefully pretty excited about this guy.
And when is that?
So, well, it's all about timing. We want to release it for Valentine's Day, but it's like, are the barrels ready? I've been tasting the whiskey barrels every day. I definitely have had my fair share this morning of them. And I'm like, let's just give it another week. But that's been in whiskey barrels for 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And is that a pastry? Is that a pastry? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a monstrosity. It's 15% alcohol and just sugar to high hell.
Wow.
People like that, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So you mentioned that this is the beer that and Greg, I promise I'll wrap this up soon. You mentioned that this is a beer that you've made before, although obviously not 2 years in the barrel, but
Mhm.
and this is one of my bugaboos as a beer writer who seeks like consistency and reliability and the ability to come back to something and tell people about it and have it not be gone in a week when after the thing comes out is um you know bringing things back. And I was I was one of my favorite beers that you guys have ever made is the chocolate shop Zanzibar ice cream stout.
Mhm.
And I know that was one of the few beers that you guys have actually made and brought back. What is the philosophy kind of behind that? And I mean that meaning like not doing that generally.
Yep.
Coming back to beers that I remember the uh, baklava. What was the baklava beer that you guys made?
Oh,
That was a few years ago now, I bet. But
yeah, we did a babka stout.
vodka stout. Okay, not all right.
We did a halva stout.
Halva, that's the one. Marble halva. Yeah,
Yeah, there it is.
that's the one I was thinking of with tahini. And it's just, I understand like some of this stuff is like super weird but like, but I imagine like there are some that are super, super successful that still don't come back. So can you talk a little bit about the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, and when we were first starting, it was kind of like like a Kansas Dust in the Wind kind of song reference there. That we're gonna make a timestamp of a piece of art, and it's only been created once, and when it's gone, it's gone. And that business model has treated us pretty well. Everybody seeks out these certain kinds of beers, and they know if you don't get it, it's gone. And I also enjoy that aspect too, because, again, making the same beer over and over and over again belittles it a little bit. It's the same way I cook too. When I cook food, I don't really cook like an item, like I'll just say whatever, some random, let me go, chicken Parmesan. I don't really cook like that. I just grab what's in the fridge and just make up some mixture and then be like, wow, that was really good. I didn't write down what that was. Shit. Well,
like the chili recipe is never the same every time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I find that exciting. And I think for some of the stuff we do repeat, the Zanzibar, we so clearly made less than people wanted, and that surprised us as well. And so that's why we came back and made it again.
I love that beer. I love that.
But we do like to keep it like coveted and unique, and kind of, that's the whole point. That's so people don't camp on this stuff. So like the juice drops, I'm drinking a juice drops Kiwi Waiti. Like, so people buy it and they split 4 amongst their friends, and then it's gone. And then you talk about it, you reminisce about it, and you're like, oh my God, that one was so good. And then you'll see juice drops Prickly Pear Strata come up and be like, oh, okay, well, it's different. Let's give this a shot. Let's see how this one is.
Okay. So. All right. Anything else that you wanted to add? I think we got to wrap up. Where Greg's probably like in the back, just like, yeah, he's like, yeah, bring it.
No, I don't know. It's you're asking me. Hopefully I answered your questions.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that and more. This is the most I've heard about Untitled Art in like all of the previous 6 years combined into one. So, and I did interview Levi about it right at the beginning. So there we go. Sam, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Untitled Art. It was super, super interesting. And I will hopefully I'll see you around. We'll be in touch.
Mm-hmm. I'll be there for another
Keep up the good work.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, I got so many questions for Sam. We might as well just bring him back.
We could bring him back on and just do an episode just with him.
Fascinating interview.
Absolutely.
I literally submitted a request to collab with Untitled when they were talking, because it just got me so excited. So
yeah,
I don't know. They probably won't call me back, but it's fine. It's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
as I said before we started, this shit ain't about me. So it's not. So what's up, Landon? How are you doing? And
I'm
we
doing
got
good.
some big events in a cold. We're in Wisconsin, y'all. It's cold.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
some big events for y'all, so you don't have to be hunkered down. Some fun things too. Let's start it off. And what you got?
Absolutely. We're gonna jump around a little bit because Draw's put in an event that doesn't happen until March. So
What?
yeah, March. Yeah. Maybe he thought it was February. I don't know. So we're gonna start off with the Winter Beer Collectors Show, which it's beer related because it has signs, glassware, memorabilia, and more. So if you're a collector of beer stuff like the metal signs and stuff that like I have behind me,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
glasses, all that stuff, head down to Onalaska January 21st. That's a Saturday. It's in their Omni Center. It's from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. They're going to have over 50 tables of beer collectibles. Pretty good stuff.
Dang, fun. Okay.
And it's inside, so if it's cold,
sure,
you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Right.
Actual beer events now. So the Ice Cold Beer Fest, and it's going to be cold because this is in February. The Campanile Center for the Arts in Minocqua, February 4th from noon to 4. It's an all-inclusive craft beer tasting event. They'll have food, beer, live music, and then all of the funds that they raise go to some really good things in their area. A lot of nonprofits, including hospice, Marshfield Clinic Breast Cancer Center, Lakeland ATV UTV Club, and then the Dr. Kate Museum. For that, you can look at general admission is $40. And then if you want the premier tasting, and what does that include, you ask? I have no idea. You pay $20 more, $60.
40 seems very low.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal for a beer fest nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, cool.
Yeah. In my neck of the woods, your favorite brewery here in Eau Claire, K Point, is having Speakeasy Night. Saturday, January 21st from 5 to 9. They're going to close the whole space off. The windows will be closed, and they're decorating pre-prohibition style. So the night's going to be full of specialty cocktails. They made a special pre-prohibition lager, and they're going to have a special menu, all kinds of appetites on that menu. I looked at it. It's a big one. So a lot of different things. And the cook there, the chef there, he's excellent.
Yeah.
And just for our viewers, the password for entry, write this down. When you go to the door, you knock on it, say, "Our mom and dad home." That'll get you in. There you go.
I was going to say, what's the secret password?
That's what it is. Our mom and dad home. That's the secret password.
I'm glad they cut you off. Well, that's another fun one, man. I don't think I'll be able to make it up, but that sounds really cool for you.
Yeah. Then Saturday, January 28th, the Rock River Beer Fest, another beer fest from 2 to 6. It's in the Mayville Park Pavilion. Sounds like it might be outside. Mayville, Wisconsin. They're going to have live entertainment, free food from local vendors, and of course, delicious beers. If the event is not sold out, tickets will be sold at the door. So if you want to go to that, make sure you buy the tickets online. Those start at $50. Mayville. Yeah.
Okay.
And then in your neck of the woods, Greg, Beer and Cheese Fest. Saturday, January 21st at the Alliant Energy Center. That's in Madison. You can meet and mingle with more than 120 brewers and 20 cheesemakers from around the state. Sample hundreds of delicious creations. That sounds great. VIP sold out for that, but general admission is $65.
Yeah, and it's worth it. It really is. It's a nice course. It's a fun time. The only thing
go wrong with that
is, I would have to. My funny quip is, some of y'all might be sleeping on the sofa that night.
Too much beer, too much cheese, man.
To be a gassy one for sure. But like Sam mentioned that Untitled Art will be there. So
there you go.
y'all go. Get you some Untitled Art and some other local Madison and Wisconsin favorites. And the cheese is just amazing. Some of the
Oh, yeah.
displays that they had, I don't know if they're able to do this post-COVID or what happened. I haven't been post-COVID, but before COVID, they had, I mean, it was just really nice. So it's another good one indoors. You can take your coat off. Again, influenza and COVID are kind of low, so we can almost have a really, really good time. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's in a couple of days, Saturday.
And then the one that Draws put in there, Noble Roots is having their 6th anniversary party. That's March 11th. So we'll probably mention this again.
Okay.
But if you're a planner, if you really like to plan out, it's Saturday, March 11th. I think it lasts 7 hours. So yeah, if you stay for all 7 hours, you're gonna be feeling it.
Yeah, y'all better be having food for us.
Yeah.
And I like when Sam says he'll be at a Beer and Cheese for the record, but I also like when there's food given to you, or included in the price, because that's important. Because a lot of times, you know how it is when you're at a beer fest, and you don't even want to pull out the money, or you just don't find time to stand in line or whatever it is. But if the food is sitting there, you're more likely to consume. We need people to consume, even if you're not driving home. You don't need to be idiots or no one wants to babysit you.
Right.
Even your most significant other. In fact, she's probably the last one that wants to babysit your ass.
Agreed.
So,
yeah.
Right? So no babysitting, none of that. And I just think we need to see more of these, even if it's just hors d'oeuvres or dumb pretzels, Landon, and even dumb pretzels with mustard would just be enough to get us through. And
man, if you had someone with soft pretzels going through one of those beer fests, you couldn't make enough of them.
Right.
You'd be selling them left and right. You'd easily run out. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, I think it's the barrel aged one. That's in Wisconsin Dells every year. That was one of the first ones I ever went to, and then I had this food just sitting out, like little hot dogs, and it was just great because, again, it helped me pace. And then I was like, oh, I'll get a little something to eat, and then I can go back to the barrel aged stuff. So it's just great. We just want to encourage y'all to do this more. We understand that there's budget constraints, but I would pay $10 more just to have food sitting around.
You bet. 100%. 100%.
So
that's all for events.
Oh man, look, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah, for the dead of winter, that's not too bad.
Right. And I think after all the holidays, we kind of hunker down a little bit. Yeah. But it would be nice to step out. So, yeah. Well, we got to get this going, Landon. Thank you for being our event person.
You bet.
All right. It's me again. You're so excited to see me again. All right. So Beer Spotlight today, this month is kind of a special, very exciting thing for me personally, because this is a Milwaukee Magazine beer. Look at that bad boy. Look at that. Look at that. This is my job. This is what I do. Look at this. Page Turner Pilsner. So Milwaukee Magazine is my day job, and we are celebrating our 40th anniversary this month, but especially this month. So we have a cover story which is really exciting, and I was the editor on it. And it's really good stuff. But like when we were thinking about what we're going to do for our anniversary back in fall, we were like, well. And everybody's like, well, this is your idea, right? Like, yeah, it should have been my idea. Yeah, it should have been my idea. No, our editor was like, we should do something special. Like, should we have like a special pizza with like Zaffiros or some kind of like Milwaukee icon? And we were kind of kicking around ideas. She's like, well, what if we made a beer? And I'm like, yes, we should do that. And here we are, Milwaukee Magazine X Eagle Park Page Turner Pilsner, celebrating 40 years. And this beer, we went to Eagle Park for this. Friend of show, friend of Milmag, and they were so easy to work with. And we're like, all right, yeah, like, what do you want to do? Like, I think it helped probably that, like, we wanted to release a beer in January, and it's a little, it's a little bit of a doldrums for beer sales. So, but hey, like we got it done, and we decided on a Pilsner. What we wanted to like obviously make it like cool. Like, I mean, not that Pilsners are not cool. Pilsners are totally cool, but like, how do you make, I mean, like the way that we approach the magazine is a, obviously we know we're a print magazine, but like, look at this thing. It's gorgeous. Like, and actually we just introduced a redesign that completely changed the way the magazine looks, and the sections and all this stuff. Look at that. Look at that thing. That's gorgeous. Anyway, so it's this kind of like contemporary take on a very classic thing. So, hey, how about some cool Australian hops, in a classic German Pilsner. So here we are, and it's not like I dictated the recipe or anything. We just kind of described the concept to the guys at Eagle Park. Jake, who was on the show in October, I think, was it, Greg? I think it was October, after the Milwaukee Brewing acquisition. So we kicked it over to him and their brewmaster Jackson Borgart, and here we are with a German Pilsner that uses oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the hops. This is so embarrassing. I know the one I'm forgetting the German one. It's not Tettnang. It's Tettnang. Tettnang hops kind of as the German aspect of it, and then but it's also there's also some Ella in there, which is kind of a interesting New World hop that's more it kind of has some noble profile, but it also can get a little citrusy, a little floral. So I don't know, it's just a cool beer. It's such a cool beer. We launched this at Eagle Park Hamilton last Wednesday. Any of you who came out, thank you for that. It was a super fun time, and this page turner should be on shelves like probably right now. I haven't stopped in yesterday or today, but it was supposed to launch this week. It'll be in your kind of better beer stores from in the Milwaukee area, and it'll be there until it's gone. We just did one batch, so if you want to try it, don't sleep on it. The profile is kind of a nice. It's got a good, I don't want to say malt backbone to it, but it's a substantial beer. I mean, certainly it's a Pilsner. It's light. Carbonation is nice, and but there's a little bit of bracing bitterness. I wouldn't say bracing, but there's definitely more bitterness than I was kind of expecting from a German style Pils. Obviously, German has a little bit more sharpness to it, but I think I don't know. This is the Eagle Park twist. This is why we wanted them to make the beer, was that it wouldn't be just kind of a boring fizzy yellow beer. And I think the Ella expresses nicely. You get like this kind of floral. There's a touch of just a touch maybe of citrus there that you wouldn't normally expect in a German Pils. So I don't know. I'm super excited about this beer. I hope you guys check it out. It's in it's 4-packs of the tall boys. I think it's going to be around like $10 or so. So it's not like it's not breaking the bank or anything. And I am just so excited for it. And I hope that you check out the beer, check out the magazine. If you notice, there's a little QR code down there that can get you a whole year of Milmag for just $1. It's like basically can't give it away. So I mean, we can give it away. We didn't want to give it away. It's worth so much more than that. But we think that if you check it out, you'll be super impressed. You can read my writing and definitely a lot of my editing in there. And I don't know. That's all I want to say. Taking over. I feel like I'm taking. Was that the weirdest thing ever? Like, I mean, I feel like I need to promote this beer, and and I want to because I think it's great. But I also like am a little it's a little unsavory to me.
Right. But I want to say, so then let me do it since it won't be unsavory. I enjoy my Milwaukee Magazine subscription, even though I don't live in Milwaukee or go there that much. There's a lot of other articles in there, but it also really sets me up for when I do go to Milwaukee, because then I know a lot of the places and I feel more comfortable because of that magazine. So the magazine's good. You're gonna have to save some of that beer for us, Chris. It's a Pilsner, so it'll last a couple months. Just put somewhere for me and Landon, and we'll happily compensate you. But I feel a little bit of not ownership, but bromanship with this one. So I'm just proud of you and happy. And yeah, that's my last call. What you got, Landon?
I got nothing. I hope to actually get out of the house a little more, but
it's January, man. What do you expect?
I don't know. Snowpocalypse is coming, and it's supposed to get down into the single digits next week. So who knows? But maybe I'll get up to Oliphant and grill those guys and see what's going on with them.
Yeah, Oliphant.
Yeah. See if you can get some answers.
Yeah, that's right.
I need a report next month.
I'm gonna bust into the place looking for answers.
It's going to be interesting because it seems like the place that they're going to, Landon, is going to be starkly different and unique than the place that they came out of. And that place that they came out of is very unique. As we've spoken to a lot of times, we tell y'all to go there whenever you can, because it's just really, really unique spot.
That is if really they are actually, that is if they are actually going there. But I couldn't agree more. The two places are completely different.
They're going there. I mean, you don't get a liquor license if you're not going there.
Gotcha. I don't know if you met the guys from Oliphant, you never really know what they're going to do.
Okay, that's fair. So, that's fair.
Okay. And Chris, you've had a big beer release. What else is going on with you? Anything?
Not really. I mean, I'm gonna be judging the chili cook-off, guest judging, chili cook-off at Gathering Place in River West this Saturday. If you want to come hang out and eat some little tiny cups of chili and drink some great lager beers and whatnot.
How was this not on events?
Well, because I was.
Anyway, what we got?
Thought I'd mention it here instead.
Yeah.
All right.
But I don't know. That's all.
That's cool, y'all. Well, on that note, after a fantastic interview, a great conversation a great rollout of your beer, I'm excited to try to taste that.
It's so good. It's so good. I really, that this is my shit. Of course I made a beer that I really want to drink.
Yeah.
But I mean, but we also know these beers are very popular around the world. This is a mass market beer. And but and I think it normies are gonna like it, but also there's a twist on this beer that makes it interesting for people who listen to beer live streams and podcasts and stuff like that.
And Chris is not going to give himself this credit, but I will, and I will project it out to everyone that Chris, you have giving your knowledge and experience, and you're writing about this, you have a knowledge about what people in Wisconsin like to drink. So I would have to think that
I can
a lot of that got into it too, because you're trying to sell beer and you don't want that sitting in Eagle Park's tap room on the side corner, piling up cases.
Well, I mean, you know what helps?
Buy it, So
you know what helps is this thing looks awesome. I mean, it's literally we literally took the cover from our magazine and kind of, we tweaked it a little bit, but we use kind of Eagle Park's kind of their nameplate there, or not their nameplate, but their all the styles and stuff. Our art director actually did the label. And it's just so it's gonna go. One thing we were not expecting was the black can, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this! I just noticed this. I don't know if you could see it. It says "Happy 40th, Milwaukee Mag." God damn, that is so cool.
Nice.
And if you came out to the event last Wednesday, at Eagle Park Hamilton, that beer was 2 days old. It was this was packaged on Monday. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's
like I said,
exciting.
man, you got to move beer, and that beer sounds like it'll move because of, again, not only your force but your knowledge and all that. So that should be fun.
Not to be undersold. Like Eagle Park made this beer and they're selling it, so like, yeah, it's gonna like they know what they're doing too.
Yeah,
more, possibly even more than I do.
Right, and yeah, oh yeah, and definitely more than me and Landon. So, so with that being said, y'all, unless y'all have something else to add, we're going to put a nice cherry on top of this wonderful Badger Beer Hour, and we're going to see y'all next month at February 15th, which is the day after that Heart Day, at 8 p.m. Central. I don't know why I want to say Eastern. Fuck Eastern when it comes to here.
No, Eastern.
We're not Eastern. We're Central.
Oh yeah, we're Central.
Right. Thank you. And hopefully we're central to all of your Wisconsin Badger news, y'all. We'll see you in a month or 3 days in less than a month. And I wanted to thank you again. And Chris, how with that beer, buddy?
Thanks, man.
Cheers, y'all.
See you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Good night.